The planet Epsilon Vega hung below the ship like a jewel. Its surface shimmered with silver-blue light, wrapped in a faint violet mist. From space it looked peaceful, almost gentle. No one aboard the Aurora Dawn expected it to be alive. When the ship landed, the crew stepped out into a quiet world that seemed to breathe. The ground was soft, covered with moss that glowed faintly under their boots. Strange plants rose tall and thin, their leaves transparent, bending toward the weak sunlight that filtered through layers of mist. It was the kind of world that made everyone whisper, even the loud ones. Among the landing team was Ethan Brooks, a young xenobiologist with calm eyes and a quiet voice. He loved planets like this, unknown, untouched, mysterious. He often said that silence was the most honest thing in the galaxy. The others laughed, but out here, far from home, his words made sense. Ethan crouched to take a sample of the moss. It pulsed faintly under his glove, as if alive. He placed it in a sealed container and looked up at the horizon. The forest beyond the landing site looked endless, filled with towering shapes that swayed even though there was no wind. The scanner on his wrist beeped softly. No dangerous radiation, no signs of predators, no structures. Just a quiet world waiting to be studied. "Brooks," called Commander Harris through the comms. "Stay within the perimeter. We don't know what's out there yet." "Understood, Commander," Ethan replied. His tone was polite, but his curiosity was stronger than caution. He had seen hundreds of planets, but something about Epsilon Vega felt different. It was not just the beauty, it was the stillness, as if the world was listening. By midday, the crew had set up a small base near the ship. Metal platforms unfolded, scanners buzzed, and drones flew in silent arcs above the trees. The team joked, worked, and moved with practiced rhythm. Ethan, however, stayed near the edge of the clearing, staring into the strange jungle beyond. He thought he saw movement. Just a flicker. Something tall and graceful standing among the glowing vines. His heart jumped. He blinked and it was gone. He looked at his scanner again, no readings. Nothing but plant life and faint heat signatures from small creatures. He rubbed his eyes and told himself it was just light distortion. The mist could bend reflection, play tricks, but deep down he wasn't convinced. That night the crew gathered around the portable heater for dinner. They shared stories, laughed about old missions, and watched the faint storms flashing over the distant mountains. Ethan barely listened. His mind kept drifting back to that fleeting shape. Lieutenant Carla Mason noticed his silence. She nudged him with her elbow. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Brooks." He gave a half smile. "Maybe I have. Come on, don't tell me you're spooked already. The scanners show nothing alive out there except plants." Ethan looked into the forest again. The vines glowed faintly blue under the twin moons. "Maybe they're wrong," he murmured. "Maybe you're tired," she said, chuckling as she handed him a ration bar. "Get some sleep. You've been staring into that jungle all day." He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave the tree line. The forest shimmered softly like it was breathing. Later, when everyone slept, Ethan stood outside his tent. The air was cool and filled with a faint hum, like distant singing. He checked his wrist recorder. The sound wasn't mechanical, it was natural. It came from the forest. He followed it a few steps, then stopped. The light from the ship's camp faded behind him, replaced by the soft blue glow of the alien trees. Every few seconds, the leaves pulsed faintly, spreading waves of light outward like ripples in water. He raised his flashlight and caught a glimpse of movement again, something pale moving between the trunks. His pulse quickened. He turned off the light and crouched, staring. There she was. At first he thought it was a trick of light again, but then she moved. A tall figure, delicate and still, watching him from the edge of the clearing. Her body shimmered faintly in the dark, as if her skin was reflecting the glow of the forest itself. He couldn't see her face, only her outline, slender, poised, almost human. His breath caught in his throat. He whispered, barely audible, "She's the most beautiful I've seen." The figure tilted her head as if she heard him. Ethan froze. His heart raced, but he didn't move. The world felt suddenly smaller, filled only with the two of them and the soft hum of the alien night. Then, without warning, she turned and disappeared into the trees. No sound, no flash. Just gone. He stood there for a long moment, unable to speak. The scanner on his wrist remained silent. No readings, no evidence, nothing. When he returned to camp, dawn was already breaking. Carla spotted him immediately and frowned. "You went out there, didn't you?" He tried to sound casual. "Just checking something." Heard a noise. Right, she said, unimpressed. You know the rules, Ethan. No one goes beyond the perimeter alone. You could have been swallowed by a sinkhole or worse, he nodded. I'll be careful. But he didn't tell her what he saw. He didn't tell anyone. He knew they wouldn't believe him. A living being, humanoid, moving freely on a world their sensors said was lifeless. It made no sense. Over the next few days, the crew continued their work. They collected soil, water, and plant samples. They recorded data on the strange bioluminescent cycle of the trees. The captain planned to move on within a week. But Ethan's mind stayed in the forest. Every night he waited for her. Sometimes he thought he saw a flicker of light where no light should be, or felt eyes watching him from the shadows. The others dismissed it all as nerves, but Ethan knew what he'd seen. The image of her shape in the blue mist wouldn't leave his mind. On the fourth night, something changed. The forest lights grew brighter, pulsing in long waves. The air filled with a faint ringing sound like glass trembling. The others noticed it too. What's that noise? Carla asked, looking up. Maybe some kind of electromagnetic reaction, the commander said. Brooks, get a reading. Ethan scanned the air and frowned. The readings are strange. It's like the forest is resonating at a frequency, almost like it's responding to something. To what? Before he could answer, one of the drones above the trees flickered and crashed. Sparks lit up the canopy, and for a second Ethan saw movement again, a shadow gliding between the glowing trunks, too smooth, too deliberate. Commander, he said quietly, we're not alone. The commander gave him a sharp look. Explain. I've seen something out there, twice, humanoid, watching us. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Carla frowned. You said nothing before now? I wasn't sure, he admitted. But it's real. I saw it near the perimeter last night. It didn't attack, it just watched. The commander looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. All right. We'll increase patrols, but no one goes beyond the perimeter without my order. Understood? Everyone agreed, though their faces showed unease. That night, as the others reinforced the defenses, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat near the edge of camp, eyes on the forest. The pulsing light had returned to normal, the air silent again. Still, he felt something out there, something patient, waiting. He spoke softly, not expecting an answer. Who are you? The forest didn't reply. Only the wind moved the glowing vines. But when he turned to leave, he found something lying on the ground near his feet. A single petal, silver and faintly warm as if freshly plucked. He picked it up carefully, staring. It shimmered in his hand before fading to a soft gray. He looked out into the trees again. You're real, he whispered. You really are. And somewhere deep in the forest, unseen eyes watched him and listened. The next morning, Ethan kept quiet about the petal. He placed it carefully inside a sealed container and hid it among his research tools. Every now and then he would glance at it, as if expecting it to glow again. The others were busy preparing to send data back to orbit. The commander seemed tense, worried about the strange interference affecting their communications. But Ethan barely noticed. He stood outside the base, staring at the horizon, at the same patch of forest where he had seen her. He didn't know if she was a ghost, a dream, or something far older than his species could imagine. All he knew was that when he whispered those words, when he called her beautiful, she had heard him, and deep down, he felt that she was not finished listening. The next morning began quietly. The sun of Epsilon Vega rose like a pale crystal over the mist, turning the forest into a sea of light and shadow. The ground shimmered faintly as if the planet itself was waking up. The air was cool and carried a soft hum that no one could explain. Ethan Brooks stood near the edge of the camp, watching the forest again. His thoughts kept circling back to what he saw last night. The silver figure, the faint glow, the petal that had vanished in his hand. It all felt like a dream, but he knew dreams didn't leave real things behind. He hadn't told anyone. He wanted to, but he knew what they'd say. They'd smile, shake their heads, and tell him it was just fatigue or light tricks. Scientists didn't believe in ghosts. But this was no ghost. This was something real, something alive. He turned on his recorder and spoke quietly. Personal log. Day 3 on Epsilon Vega. Observed humanoid figure near the perimeter. Unknown species. Seems intelligent. No hostile actions. Further investigation needed. He paused. No one else believes me yet. He ended the recording and sighed. He wanted to go into the forest again, but the commander's orders were clear. No one beyond the perimeter. So, He waited, scanning the jungle with his eyes, looking for any sign of movement. Carla Mason walked over, holding 2 cups of rehydrated coffee. "You look like you didn't sleep again," she said with a teasing smile. Ethan accepted the cup. "I tried," he said. "Didn't work." She sat beside him, stretching her legs. "You're obsessed with this place. I get it, it's beautiful. But you need to rest. You've been on edge since we landed." He didn't answer right away. "Do you ever feel like something's watching us?" he asked. She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Like the forest. It feels alive. Not just growing, but aware." Carla laughed lightly. "You've been breathing too much of this mist. Maybe you're turning poetic on me." Ethan smiled faintly but said nothing more. She meant well, but she hadn't seen what he saw. Later that day, the crew spread out to collect more samples. Ethan was assigned to analyze water from a nearby stream that ran just beyond the scanner's range. Commander Harris reminded him to stay in communication at all times. Ethan agreed, and set off with his sampling kit and a small drone hovering beside him. The forest was silent except for the soft rustle of glowing leaves. Every step he took seemed to echo in the still air. The deeper he went, the more he felt that quiet weight again, that sense that unseen eyes were following him. He knelt by the stream, filling small containers with water. The liquid shimmered faintly, full of microscopic particles that sparkled like dust. He turned on his scanner, reading energy levels and mineral content. Everything looked normal except for one strange detail. The water emitted a faint pulse as if carrying a rhythm. He frowned and leaned closer. That was when he saw it again. A reflection in the water, not his own, but hers. He turned quickly, but she was already gone. Only the mist remained, swirling gently among the trees. He stood slowly, heart pounding. "Wait," he said softly. His voice carried only a few feet before fading. He took a step forward, then another. He knew he shouldn't, but something in him needed to see her again. He followed faint footprints that glowed faintly on the moss, bare feet, small and delicate, leading deeper into the forest. His scanner beeped weakly, struggling to read anything. The trees seemed to bend slightly toward him as if listening. He stepped into a clearing, and there she was. She stood near a cluster of large, glowing flowers that floated just above the ground. Her skin shone like polished glass, faintly silver under the soft light. Her hair, or what looked like it, moved as if made of thin threads of light. Her eyes were bright, like 2 mirrors reflecting the whole forest. Ethan froze. She was beautiful, but not in any way he could explain. She looked fragile and powerful at the same time, like something that didn't belong in his world. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Ethan raised a hand slowly, not wanting to scare her. "I'm not here to harm you," he said softly. "I just want to understand." She tilted her head. Her eyes were calm, curious. When she spoke, it wasn't with words, more like a faint sound inside his mind, gentle and distant. He didn't understand it, but somehow he knew it meant she was listening. He pointed to himself. "Ethan." Then he pointed at her. "You?" She blinked once, then touched her chest lightly. The sound that filled his mind this time was clearer. It wasn't a word he could pronounce, but it sounded like Lyra. "Lyra," he repeated quietly. She didn't react, but he thought he saw her lips curve faintly, almost like a smile. He slowly took a small step closer. She didn't move away. The air between them shimmered faintly. He could feel a low vibration in his chest, not from fear, but from the strange presence around her. She looked at the sampling device in his hand, then at the containers. Her expression changed slightly, concern, maybe even warning. She reached out, and before he could react, the samples in his hand began to glow. The containers trembled, and the water inside pulsed brighter until the light faded completely. He stared in shock. "What did you—" he started, but she lifted a hand to silence him. The look in her eyes told him everything. The water wasn't just water. It was alive. He took a shaky breath. "You're protecting it, aren't you?" She didn't answer, but the air around her shimmered again. Then she stepped back, fading slightly into the mist. He reached out instinctively, but his hand passed through nothing. "Wait," he said again. "Please," but she was gone. The clearing was empty, the flowers dim. Ethan stood there for a long time, trying to calm his heartbeat. He felt both wonder and fear. This world wasn't what they thought it was. It wasn't a dead planet. It was alive, and she was its guardian. He returned to camp late, covered in dust and sweat. Carla ran toward him, looking both angry and worried. "Where the hell were you? We lost your signal for an hour." Ethan held up the ruined containers. "I found something. Or someone." The commander joined them, arms crossed. "You went beyond the perimeter again?" "I had to," Ethan said quickly. "There's a being out there. A woman or something that looks like one. She's intelligent. She knew what I was doing. She stopped me from taking samples." The commander's eyes narrowed. "You're sure of this?" "Yes," Ethan said. "She called herself Lyra." Carla exchanged a look with the others. "Ethan, we didn't detect any life forms besides flora." "Are you sure you didn't?" "I'm sure," he interrupted. His voice was firm now. "She's real, and she's watching us," the commander sighed. "All right. We'll review the drone footage. But until then, you stay in camp. No more wandering off." "That's an order." Ethan nodded reluctantly. He knew arguing wouldn't help. That night he couldn't sleep. The camp was quiet except for the hum of the generator. He lay awake, staring at the faint light flickering through the tent fabric. He kept hearing her name in his mind. Lyra, the way she looked at him. The warning in her eyes. Around midnight, a soft light flickered outside his tent. He sat up quickly and opened the flap. The forest glowed faintly again, but this time the glow pulsed like a heartbeat. He stepped outside, his boots sinking into the moss. Something caught his eye, a symbol etched into the ground just beyond the perimeter. It glowed for a moment, then faded. He knelt to touch it, feeling a faint warmth under his fingers. It wasn't random. It was writing. A message. He whispered to himself, "She's trying to tell me something." He stayed there for a long time, tracing the faint lines with his hand, trying to understand. The more he looked, the more he felt that the pattern wasn't just a warning. It was an invitation. The forest watched him silently. By morning, the markings had vanished. The commander blamed natural bioluminescence. The crew laughed it off. But Ethan knew the truth. He had seen her twice now. She was real, and she was trying to communicate. As the Aurora Dawn prepared to transmit its data, Ethan stood alone at the edge of the jungle. The mist curled around his boots and the forest lights flickered softly, like eyes blinking in the dark. He whispered into the air, "I'll find you again, Lyra." The forest gave no answer, but deep inside the glowing trees something stirred, and for the first time since her long isolation, Lyra turned her gaze toward the human camp. She had seen curiosity before, but never kindness. Never someone who looked at her without fear. She didn't know why his words echoed inside her mind. But she knew this: Ethan Brooks would come again. And when he did, the silence of Epsilon Vega would never be the same.